glad that NAR never changes how long I've been in the business, so I never age, which is awesome. And so I first got licensed in May of 1986, and I got my broker's license in 1991. So just to give you a little bit of history about me and who in the world would ever do what I've done, I'll explain why. So my dad owned one of the largest independents in the country. I'm from Columbus, Ohio, OH, originally. And he also had a franchise division called Real Living, which was the other franchise under Home Services with Berkshire Hathaway. It did not survive COVID, unfortunately. My father was also the 1991 president of the National Association of Realtors, so I am the third second-generation president in 115 years. And, in case you didn't know this, we are the largest trade association in the world with more than 1.6 million members. And oh my goodness, do realtors have opinions? So I tried to keep it down to 100 a day instead of 1.6 million, but boy, you hear it from it all. So anyway, I'm so thrilled to be here, and it's great because I live 5 minutes south of here. I live in the Nature Preserve. Anybody know where that is in West Plano? So we've lived in our house almost 26 years, and we would go four-wheeling down there before it was illegal to even walk down there. But, nobody could catch us because we went pretty fast and they had no access. Not that we're, rebels or would do anything against the law or anything, but it's just kind of fun. I will tell you, my husband, any of you who may know him, Brian Smith, farm and ranch broker. We have another guy on our team that does farm and ranch. And then we have residential with myself, our daughter, another residential agent, maybe another one, an assistant, and then our son, Austin, moved to Austin. So I probably should have named him Dallas after all, but he loves down there, so he's probably not going to come back. So, not exactly what I ever wanted to hear, but I have been in the business for over 50 years, and I was underage when I started. So, people ask me, why are you in real estate? And I just tell them I don't know any better because that's all I've ever known is real estate. So one of the things I get asked a lot as I travel around the world on behalf of realtors is, what would you tell your younger self? I would tell you to buy land, however much you can afford, however far out you have to go, buy it and sit on it. Because I can tell you story after story after story of us doing that and the benefits that we've reaped from it. Now, it's not always a home run, but as long as you break even, it's not a loss at least. So I always tell the kids that. And then when it comes to our kids, I told them, we have two kids, Kristen and Austin, they're 35 and 33. And when they were younger, they wanted to get their black belt. I'm like, oh gosh, I would just love to drive you there every day to get your black belt. How many years will that take? So I said, all right, a deal. Dad and I want a college degree and real estate license. So they both did all three. They both got into real estate. They told me how much they hated it and that they did not want to be like their mom and dad. And I said, you don't have to be like your parents, but you do have to keep your license active for the rest of your life so that you'll know how to invest the money that I know you're going to make. So they both left at different times. They went and waited tables. And I said, so how's it feel to pay someone else's mortgage? And they look at me like, what are you talking about? And I go, well, you're not paying yours with that kind of money. So anyway, consequently, they both got back into real estate and realized it really isn't that bad after all. So, and they're both doing very well. I don't know if any of you know Kristen Smith, a lot of followers on social media. She is the queen of investing. She owns blocks on the south side of downtown and Airbnbs, and she's just, we call her the machine because I don't think she sleeps. I think she just stays up all night to beat everyone on what's new on MLS so she can go make an offer on it and get it in the option period. So how many of you know that we're fighting a lot of lawsuits? Yes, the most we've ever been fighting in our history, 15 to be exact. And things like this cost millions and millions of dollars, not just for inside counsel, but also outside counsel. There's about 360 people that work at the National Association of Realtors. We are based on Michigan Avenue in Chicago. Anybody ever been there? Yeah, great. And then in Washington, D.C., we look at our nation's capital in a beautiful building. That's where our lobby team, advocacy, and all of the policy stuff, economists, everything are all based in that building. So what I will tell you is if it weren't for us being members of the National Association of Realtors, we would not have a business that we all have today. It would cease to exist. And these lawsuits could cause that to happen. And that's why these lawsuits are so important, especially, of course, the DOJ is always hanging over our back. But the class action lawsuits regarding buyers and sellers are also very concerning. Even though we feel very confident we will prevail in all of these cases, it's still a lot of work to get to that point. And something else to think about too. You know, we may have 1.6 million realtors, but there's probably about that many licensees that are non-realtors. Wow. So they are licensees, they are not realtors. They cannot use the name realtor, and the difference between us and them is we abide by a code of ethics. So if you're ever up against anybody with a buyer or a seller, make sure you remember to say that, because that speaks volumes to a client or customer that we abide by a code of ethics that others are not required to do unless they are a member of the National Association of Realtors. So I stick pretty much to the script when I talk about the legal proceedings because I'm told to. Or I may end up getting subpoenaed, which I've avoided so far. And I'm trying to just make it through the last 5 months of my leadership journey, not getting called in for depositions, because we're all on the hook for that if it gets to that. But just know that our leadership team and our legal counsel are working nonstop, day in, day out, preparing for the depositions and these trials and everything that goes into this, to make sure that we leave this profession better than we found it for generations to come. So that's something that's very important to me. As a matter of fact, my big initiative last year as president was I planted one tree for every member of the National Association of Realtors, which is planted where there are droughts, fires, flooding, whatever it may be. But hopefully those trees will outlast every one of us, so we will definitely leave the planet better than we found it. One thing that was interesting, I had somebody tell me, well, I don't think you're going to be planting any trees in my state. And I said, well, it's actually going to represent about 78% of our membership of the 1.6 million. But you know what? Trees help purify the oxygen that we breathe, and it crosses state lines. I don't think he thought that was very funny, but it's actually true. But he was just trying to find a way to stop me on what I was doing. But I will also tell you that if there's anything you take away from this, regardless of intervening legal decisions and associated speculation, our legal experts are confident that we will prevail in each of these cases. So I'm going to tell you not about 15 of them, because that would take me all day. But I'm going to tell you about some of the main ones that really have an impact on our business. 4 years ago, NAR and 4 corporate defendants sued us in class action lawsuits in Missouri and in Illinois, alleging home sellers have been damaged because their listing broker compensates the buyer representative. The lawsuits allege that the practice of listing brokers compensating buyer brokers artificially inflates buyers' costs, leading to higher home prices. And remember, a class action lawsuit requires a number of people. So it's not just a person who got mad at a realtor who decided to file a lawsuit. These are a number of sellers, a number of buyers that have come together to create what is called a class action lawsuit. The lawsuits allege that we are inflating the buyer costs by doing what I was just saying. But the thing that's scary about it is we've always done it, it's always worked, and everyone's been happy with it. Why, 115 years later, all of a sudden it's not a good idea anymore? And we do live in a very litigious society, so I guess that's just kind of the world we're in now. But in September of 2022, the class action attorneys in the Burnett case in Missouri began notifying the class members of the legal rights and their ability to opt out of the case. This is typical in a class action case, but in no way reflects the actual or perceived merits of the claims, nor the facts of the case. In March, a judge certified that the case could proceed as a class action, and so we are currently in discovery in that case. The pro-competitive, pro-consumer MLS broker marketplaces serve the best interests of our buyers and sellers, our MLS. Sellers making offers of compensation to buyer brokers gives first-time, low and middle income, and all buyers a better shot at affording a home and professional representation. As you know, it's a free market that organically establishes commission costs within real estate markets based on service, consumer preference, and what the market can bear. And as we all know, commissions are negotiable. While the Illinois case, which is the moral case, is in early stages, the Missouri case is set to go to trial this fall, where our attorneys will make it eminently clear that we have the law and the facts on our side. Ultimately, it is expected to be a very lengthy process before the cases are fully resolved. So stay tuned, and remember, you can go to nar.realtor and look up any of these lawsuits and where they are anytime you want. There are lots of resources at nar.realtor for you. Two other lawsuits stem from private listing networks. Realtors, they want realtors to bypass the local broker marketplace, the MLS, and market properties to their consumers only through their private networks. And there's one in San Francisco that I'm more aware of that did file the lawsuit against NAR with a clear cooperation because they don't like those rules because it doesn't work for their group. They've lost so far, but they've also appealed. The plaintiff's original complaints were dismissed, where a federal judge agreed with NAR that the clear cooperation policy provides consumers with access to more information regarding marketing conditions or market conditions, enabling them to make better informed choices about the bundle of real estate brokerage services that best fits their needs. But, however, due to the appeals, the cases, which are called Top Agent Network versus NAR and PLS.com LLC versus NAR, are ongoing. And the one that's in San Francisco is the Top Agent Network that I'm more familiar with. Regardless, we will continue to defend against the lawsuits as we firmly believe that the clear cooperation policy advances equal opportunity in housing by ensuring listings are widely available and accessible to all. Without the protections from the CCP, consumers would be disadvantaged because their agents could refuse to give them and their agents access to those listings. While we firmly expect the court to rule in our favor ahead of time, but we also need to look forward to presenting our position at trial and proving that the rule promotes competition and ensures transparent, equitable, and equitable access to real estate listings to benefit all consumers. There was a clear victory for NAR in January of 2023. This is always the fun one to talk about here. District Court sided with the National Association of Realtors when it ruled that the Department of Justice, who's been very busy lately, must adhere to its previous agreement with NAR to more explicitly state the spirit and intent of NAR's Code of Ethics and MLS guidelines in certain areas. And just to let you know, they filed this against us maybe in 2020, and then in fall of 2021, we had an agreement with them that we would do what they wanted us. There were 4 things. We did all 4 of them. 7 months later, after administrations had changed, they came back at the National Association of Realtors as if we never had a deal, and they came back at us again. So then we won, and now they're appealing again. So I don't know how long this will continue, but it could be months, it could be years. One thing I will say, having been around the business for a long time, DOJ likes to come after us approximately every 8 years. That's kind of their thing. Once we settle, we're free for 7 or 8 years before they find something else to come at us for. NAR has already adopted the clarifications, as I mentioned, in the guidance for local MLS marketplaces to strengthen transparency for consumers. And of course, like I said, they recently appealed the decision. Don't know where that stands right now because everything's so backlogged. It could be who knows when we'll find out. But we are very confident in even the DOJ case, we will prevail. We have upheld our end of the agreement, and we simply expect the DOJ to do the same. As part of our commitment to act in the best interest of home buyers and sellers across the country, NAR remains dedicated to advancing independent local real estate marketplaces that provide a greater economic opportunity and equity for all small businesses and consumers of all backgrounds and financial means. So here's another one. How many of you are familiar with the Rex case?
No? Actually, I was thinking, no, I'm not familiar with the case, but they popped in my mind since you started talking.
Oh, is that right? So Rex filed an antitrust lawsuit against Zillow, Trulia, and the National Association of Realtors in March of 2021, so a little over 2 years ago. It's a different Rex, I think. It's a national, yeah. But anyway, they are taking issue with Zillow's decision to distinguish between properties listed on MLS versus those that are not. And in the Rex case, discovery continues to proceed, and that trial is scheduled for September of 2023. We remain confident that we will ultimately prevail in this case, again, because local MLS broker marketplaces are the source of the most accurate and reliable property information for brokers. So some things that you can do to help. First of all, we aren't good at tooting our own horn, and we need to start doing it if we want to still be in business in 5 or 10 years. So that's up to us to start talking about what value we bring in the buying and selling process. So we'll tell you that probably besides the legal department, another department that's extremely active at the National Association of Realtors is our advocacy department, because they play a huge role in a lot of the things that go on. There are so many things that go on while you are out listing and selling property that you have no clue of, because we either pass or defeat anything in our favor. And that includes at the Texas Realtors. So do y'all remember the PPP through the pandemic? Do you know that we, for the first time in the history of our country, realtors were a part of a stimulus program? We've never had that ever in the history of our country. Why? Because we have an amazing lobby team that represents all parties, and they're out there working on our behalf 24/7. And just so you know, NAR is not focused on any party. Republican, Democrat, Independent, Libertarian, none of that. We are all members of the same party, the Realtor Party. If you're in this business, that's what you are a member of. NAR loves to take credit for saying the Realtor Party, but in reality, it came from Texas in the year 2000. So I just want you to know that because you're in Texas. But it's really fun to tell people that aren't. Because they look at me like, how could that be? And I'm like, well, let me show you the bumper stickers from 20-some years ago, and then you'll know. But anyway, there are some websites. If you have something to write with, I would recommend that you write these down, because it's so important that we go in and check these out. First of all, if you haven't been to nar.realtor, there are so many resources there for you. There's Right Tools right now. There's all kinds of discounts on things. Our chief economist, Lawrence Yoon, is one of the chief economist in the country, is phenomenal. And his right-hand person, Jessica Louts, is the queen of data. She has a PhD from some college in Great Britain I just sat with her for lunch last week, and she's so smart. It was very interesting too, just on a side note. I was talking to a friend of mine from Chicago when I was up there last week, and he said, how's your market? And I said, well, things have slowed down, but it's not horrible from like what I'm hearing around the country. He said, he's a broker, owner, and he said that his business is down 30% from 1 year ago. So Jessica was sitting there, and I said, hey, what's the average on, how much we're down around the country? Since real estate's local and I'm hearing about it everywhere. She said it's about 40%. So one thing I will also say, it doesn't really pertain to us as much right now, and let's hope it doesn't. But I preach this a lot, because when you think about going through the pandemic, I don't know about you, but when that pandemic hit, I was 100% sure we were done. Like, I was never going to list or sell another property. I just thought, what's going on? Is it the end of the world? What's going on? We've never lived through a pandemic. And then who would have ever thought in a million years we would have the market that we had? Sadly, I sold our lake house during the pandemic but before the prices went up. So what I would do to have that back and start over, but anyway, the people that moved in are very nice people, and that matters more to me. So the money might matter a little bit, who knows. Anyway, go to competition.realtor. That's another one that will just give you some great info. And it empowers you to serve as ambassadors with your consumers and within your community. It also has fact sheets, FAQs, social media assets that you can share, just all kinds of things. And it just explains our current real estate landscape. It also updates everyone on NAR policy changes and legal matters, and illustrates us as realtors, as consumer champions. And it also does a very good job of explaining why our MLS marketplaces are highly competitive and promote equity with greater access and more choices. A couple of other ones are thedifference.com, and that is just to help you communicate your value. And then, of course, we all get these questions sometime, realestatecommissionfacts.com. These are all NAR sites, by the way, realestatecommissionfacts.com. Just kind of helps you overcome objections when you get them sometimes, especially in a good market when people think that you don't work as hard, therefore you should take less. There might be something in there that can help you with that in educating people. And I kind of go back to when I was chairman of Texas, or I don't know, I might have been chairman-elect, but around 15 or 16. We had a Proposition 1 on our state ballot, and it was an increase in our homestead exemption with two other parts to it. But the increase was from $25,000 to $35,000 homestead exemption. And so I was speaking in a ballroom in Austin, Texas, and I said, how many of you are talking to your buyers and sellers about Prop 1? Not a single hand went up. And these are the people that are involved. And I thought, wow, this is crazy. We're not even talking about what we need to be talking about. I said, why are you not telling your buyers and sellers that there's a $10,000 increase in the homestead exemption, which, by the way, is on the table again right now to help with property taxes? So it's interesting to see that people don't pay attention in a way, but on the other hand, if you do pay attention and you do know what is going on around you, what's going to be on a ballot, then you can talk. Can you imagine if you went into a listing appointment right now and you said, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, are you aware of Prop 1 and how that affects you as a homeowner? And they'll look at you like, what's Prop 1? And that's your opportunity to show just how smart you are, how knowledgeable, and the expertise that you have in this business. But then the next question I would ask is, are you interviewing any other realtors? And when they say yes, we have a couple appointments this afternoon. Say, well, you know what? Get their opinion on Prop 1 too. It'd be important to do that. And then you and I know the odds of them having a clue what Prop 1 is zero. So you can tell I'm in sales, right? But we are facing a lot of significant changes in our business right now. So if you guys want, I can go on to just some highlights of things at NAR that you may or may not know. I'm happy to open it up for questions. I don't have to be anywhere absolutely till 1:30, so I can do whatever you want me to do.
Keep going, Leslie.
Okay, so there's a ton of educational resources. There's a Center for Real Estate Development that is on NAR.Realtor. You can go to the search bar in NAR.Realtor and find anything. So you shouldn't have any problem finding what you're looking for. But in the Real Estate Center for Development, it is, you'll find like any kind of courses that are being offered, designations, certifications. I assume everyone in here has at least one designation or certification. It's kind of interesting, though, having younger children, they just don't really see a need for that. It's kind of different, but, I'm the old mom, and they're the young kids, and they know better than I do because they know technology better. And my husband, who is technologically inept, like I know no one as inept as he is. Matter of fact, the kids want to start an Instagram page that says, don't be your parents. I go, no, you say, don't be your dad. I mean, it's just... our daughter says, we're going to do one every day. And she goes, one of them would be like, we're all getting ready to go into the movie theater. And she'd go, everybody get out your phones, put it on silent. And then my husband would go, I don't have that. And that is not a joke. This is for real. This is my life. So he needs a mother and a wife. And clearly I work for both. But anyway, there's all kinds of great opportunities. Like any of you broker managers at all, or are you all agents? So if you ever want to know anything you could use for anything for an office meeting, there's everything you could ever want in there. And just know too that every single month is something at NAR, like fair housing or home ownership month or just whatever. It's always something different. Hi, Melissa. How are you? We're just glad you're here. How are you? See, now we're both CCAR past presidents, so we all stick together. Also, we have another thing that is an NAR designation that's called C2EX, and it is C2EX.Realtor. And you take any one of 11 self-assessments to measure your proficiency in 10 aspects of professionalism. It's 11 for brokers. But it literally, what you start out doing and how you answer the questions leads you on the path you go. But it's really good. It counts for your, that thing. That one, the training.
Every 3 years.
Right.
I need code of ethics training every 3 years in order to keep your license.
And if you've never taken a class from Melissa, highly, highly recommend. She's phenomenal. And she knows her stuff. Ain't that right? So the one thing about C2EX, you have to renew it every few years, but it's not all that difficult to do. Even I did it when I, being in leadership, just because I felt like I needed to lead by example. We also have a Realtor financial wellness program that gives you tools and resources to help strategically help you set up financially for your future, for retirement, build your business, long-term success, just all those things. But they do different webinars and programs. And last week when I was in Chicago, I said, is there any way you guys could have 1 month, all the topics of the webinars you have, so I could go to one email and find all of them that go to every department. It just gets confusing. Another thing, the hub, which is on NAR, that's when you get a lot of our members giving their opinions. That's where we find a lot of them. And the hub is something that's just a great opportunity to see what's going on, to be abreast and up to date on what is happening in our profession right now, things that we need to be looking out for and or be concerned about. We also have really amped up our commercial side. Anybody doing commercial? No? Okay. Well, if you ever change your mind, it's there. Also, one thing a lot of people have no idea. We have 110 bilateral agreements with countries, about 79 countries around the world. They are also realtors. Canadian Real Estate Association are all realtors, and there's almost 200,000 of them. But when I talk about the 1.6 million, I'm talking about in our country. So just to give you an idea of what it's like to be president, like I was last year. You travel a lot, except COVID slowed us down a little bit. But I would say one of the big highlights last year was I was in Dubai, and anybody ever been to Dubai? Okay, so yes. So you've never seen so much gold and money dripping from everything that you could look at. I'm surprised the grass isn't gold. Everything, there's not much grass though, it's concrete and steel, but phenomenal architecture if you love architecture. The nicest people, did not meet a single person who didn't speak English, so it was great. But I remember walking into this room that was all gold, and they said, Madam President, you will be sitting right here, and I'm like, it looks like a throne. So am I the queen for the day? And then they said, His Majesty will be here momentarily. And I'm like, His Majesty? Who's that? Anyway, it's the director of finance. That's like the second in command in Dubai. So I had dinner with him. My husband wasn't even allowed to sit with me. He had to sit at another table. But let me tell you, he's so used to this. He just right? Oh, God. I know, and I sat on the other side of me was one of the big billionaires from Dubai, and I'm like, wow, this is crazy. But the thing that was really neat about it, when we signed these bilateral agreements, it's the current president of NAR and whoever their person is to sign it. Well, this was me, being the 7th woman president at 15 years. But remember, women represent 2/3 of realtors. So it was huge that a woman was representing realtors internationally. And then there was a woman, the only woman I saw in business the whole time I was there, is on stage with me. So I didn't realize how historical it was until I saw all the television cameras and all the people in the audience crying because it was so historic. And I just sat there and I said, you need to pay attention because you're never going to do this again. So I signed bilateral agreements with Bolivia, Turkey, and Dubai. Some of these are signed sometimes before with the country, but then the entity changes. So like in Dubai, it was the Dubai Land Department that I was signing with. So it's a different entity than what was signed before that no longer exists, just to understand what that's about. But when we have our fall meeting in November of every year, we have about 3,000 international people that come to our meetings, and we go big for them. So global is really a big thing, especially in certain markets. You can imagine the Miami realtors are huge in global because they get a ton of business there. But it's really an interesting niche to understand in our profession. So if anybody's ever interested in that, just know that we have the CIPS, Certified International Property Specialist, which is also a great designation to get, and you learn a lot. Let's just see. I will tell you another thing that was interesting too as president last year. A lot of people ask me, what did you expect and what did you not expect? Of course, I had some expectations since I grew up in real estate, but I never knew we were going to be in a pandemic and I would be the first hybrid president. So on a typical day, I could get up, put my luggage in my car, go speak to 20,000 people virtually, go to the airport, hope my flight's on time, possibly speak at the gate. I've done that a few times. Get on the plane, get to where I'm going, and hope my room is ready because I'm speaking again virtually. Then go downstairs and speak to whoever I'm there to speak, like say Florida Realtors. Go back up to my room, and one day I spoke to 20,000 Compass agents, on a virtual call. So I don't know if any of you were on that. And then I had my black tie clothes on my bed, waiting for me to, as soon as I clicked off of that Zoom, I jumped into my black tie clothes to get to a reception late and then to another event. So that would be a normal day. Now, before COVID, forget the virtual part and things like that. Like we were actually in Florida last August, and my husband goes, we're supposed to be at that event. I go, I know. I told this group in Tennessee I would speak to them at an RPAC major event. That's our tree pack, in case you don't know. And so he goes, well, what are you going to do? I go, they're calling me right now. So I'm standing in front of the window with my phone, speaking to them, and he's holding the door for me to get the heck out of there to get to the next event. So I did have translators, handlers, schedulers, speech writers, all those things, because you can't do it. And don't forget, I was traveling different time zones all the time. So you know where you are, unlike before your phones told you, but you don't necessarily feel like it's daytime yet, depending on where you are. So, you just learn to deal with it. And that's why, I was under anesthesia 2 hours before I came here today. And people are like, you're not supposed to drive. And I'm like, I know, my husband's bringing me. Right, whatever. No, he's on a listing appointment. He did not bring me here. But I would never want to follow the rules. It was a lower back procedure, so I was only under for 20 minutes. So I'm fine.
Yeah. When she told me when her people told me that she was having a procedure and then coming here, I was like, is that okay?
Well, I'm a frequent flyer. I've had 7 since the first of the year. And, when I walked in there today, I go, hey, it's me, the frequent flyer. And I said, I already know all the rules. Here, put the thing on me, the, blood pressure, all that. So they got it done quick with me because they know I know what they're doing. I said, if you're not careful, I'll take over your job. But probably not. I don't like blood. But let me just see if there's anything. Oh, I don't know if I told you this, but for the first time in the history of the National Association of Realtors, I presided over the first majority female leadership team. Now, for you guys, that may not sound like a really big deal, but it's huge to women. That 5 out of 7 of our officers were women last year. And there are 5 officers and 2 appointees. The 2 appointees are vice presidents appointed by the president. So I appointed 2 people last year. One was Shannon King, who's originally from Arlington, Texas, and lives in a horrible place like Ka'alua, Hawaii. And then my other one was Kaki Libbard, who was 2018 chair of the Texas Realtors, and she lives in Argyle. So she was my advocacy VP, and Shannon was my association affairs VP. So they still have a vote and voice. They're just not considered an officer. So it really was a big deal that we had that last year. So it's pretty exciting to be the first and also to preside over the largest membership we've ever had. It's funny too, having been around this my whole life, my dad was 91 president. Our membership was 720,000, and the prediction in 1991 was that we would go down to 500,000. Instead, we went to 1.6 million. So isn't that interesting though? It's kind of crazy. It's like, why did they predict 500,000 back then? What was that? But that was also the beginning of computers and RIN, Realtor Information Network, that my dad was the chair of, and he's about as bad as my husband on technology. I'm like, y'all didn't interview very well on that, because that's not who you would have picked. He probably doesn't even know what it stands for, but he does know how to send jokes out though. That was his claim to fame. So anyway, I'm happy to open it up for any questions that you may have. I know that was probably like drinking out of a fire hydrant, and guess what? That's about that much of all there is out there. So anything I can answer, I'm happy to. Don't be afraid.
That's a lot. That was a lot.
What's NAR doing in terms of luxury, since, you know, the price points have gotten up, we have a lot more luxury in the market. What can we expect in terms of additional education and that kind of thing?
Well, we have, you know, designations and things, and of course you guys have groups, I know, that have, you know, the luxury homes, and you've got Christie's and Sotheby's and things like that for the luxury. More of that is within your peers that are focused on that. Just like second home and resorts, same kind of thing. They have their niche, their focus. I'll tell you, if you ever want to learn more and network, a great opportunity is our meeting in November. This year it is in Anaheim. And it just, you know, people ask me all the time, how does this affect your business? I'm like, you have no idea how many referrals we get. All the referrals I give to the rest of the team, because of course, if I listed and sold real estate right now, I would not have any repeat business, because none of them would be very happy that I couldn't get back with them. So I make sure that there's somebody that is on top of it. But I'll tell you a great story. For those of you who are not involved at the association level, I highly recommend it. Not only will you learn a lot, you'll meet amazing people, but I always tell people when I go to Texas meetings, I'm not hanging around with local people. When I go to national meetings, I'm not hanging around with Texas people. I'm going to network and meet other people. So in 2013, our state chairman in Texas was Shad Bogme from Houston with Better Homes and Gardens. And I think it's the first or second largest Better Homes and Gardens in the United States. He ranked number 4 as chairman of the Texas Realtors. Wow. And guess what? He had 1 assistant. That's it. And he does not sell luxury. He sells very low end compared to most people. So it's transaction based, and that's a lot of business. He doesn't sleep. He's had a radio show for over 30 years. I mean, he's amazing. But you know, when people say I'm too busy, I'll tell you what, you're never too busy to be involved, to learn, and to be better at your craft. And then obviously you meet a lot of amazing people. And one thing I say is I literally could get stranded anywhere in the world, and I could post it on social media, and with 5 minutes, I'd have 10 people saying, "Where are you? Coming to get you right now." That is the beauty of it all. And you know, people ask me, well, do you know anyone in this little podunk town in this small state? I go, I do. And you know, a lot of people ask me, who should I refer something to? Because they know I know people everywhere, and I know the people that are worth giving a referral to, that you'll, you know, hear good things back about them, and I know the ones that maybe didn't do such a great job. So that matters too. Which kind of brings me to something I found very interesting on social media. I think it was 2 years ago when I was president-elect, this girl went off on NAR and Realtor.com, and she knew everything about it. And I said, well, you are not correct. So she sent me a news article that was also incorrect. And we sold to Zillow and Troy in 2014, according to her. I said, no. We sold Realtor.com in the 90s when nobody knew what they were doing, sadly, and that's what happened. Anyway, this is all on social media, by the way, for the world to see, which makes people, you really need to think about what you post. She goes, well, who do you think you are? And I said, well, actually, I am president-elect of the National Association of Realtors, and I'm on the advisory board for Realtor.com. That's it. Never heard another word. But I'll tell you, there's a lady in Fort Wayne, Indiana that I would never do business with, and that's her. I mean, I would tell you, do not do business with her, because if that's how you're gonna talk behind your computer, how are you gonna act in person? So you told me all I need to know. People need to understand that and realize it, but I know I'm talking to the choir here, because it's usually the younger ones who haven't, had something negative happen from that. Yes?
What is our true relationship between NAR and Realtor.com? Because like you said, we see the articles online, we hear people chatter about it, but I don't think anyone actually knows. I know we sold the domain a long time ago, but they have NAR branded stuff on there. What is the true relationship?
Well, the umbrella over it is MOVE. The name of the company is MOVE. The president-elect and president are on the advisory board as well as our CEO of the National Association of Realtors. We have an amazing relationship with Realtor.com. They wanted to start putting FSBOs on the site last year, and we were like, no, you can't do that. And they said, could we try it and see how it works? No, you can't do that. So we do have power. They do have to listen to us, and they were not able to do it because we would not agree to it. I will tell you, David Doctorow, who's the CEO, is leaving at the end of the month, sadly. But there's another guy that's taking over who's amazing, so we're not going to miss a step. But we do have a great relationship with all of our outside businesses. And another thing that's very interesting, a lot of people don't know, is we have a part of NAR called Second Century Ventures. And in Second Century Ventures, we have a program called the REACH program. In the REACH program is where we help startups get off the ground if we think their business is worthy of the realtors knowing about it. We are now invested in more than 200 tech companies because our CEO, Bob Goldberg, always says, not invented here. In other words, that's not what we do. We don't invent things at NAR, but we partner with people who do. So that has been the basis of the REACH program that is now in Canada, Great Britain, Australia. I don't know where all we are, but I've met some of these people in my travels, and it's amazing to see what we do. And then we have a meeting that's called IOI. It's Innovation, Opportunity, and Investment. Thanks, I'm glad you're here. I can't remember. It is, and my favorite part is the pitch battle. So I'm sure you all know the TV show, The Shark Tank. Well, NAR was the original Shark Tank. We had these REACH programs and the pitch battle before the Shark Tank ever premiered on television. So we pit them against each other. And I know a couple years ago, Curbio won, and I think Box Brownie might have won one year, but it's really fun to watch because the part I like the best, this is terrible to say, but when we get people at the microphone, sometimes we can't get them off, even though there's a timer that they're looking at by the teleprompter, and so they just cut the mic off. So they can talk all they want, but no one can hear them. And so they realize that no one can hear them, so then they go take their seat. But it's just kind of like, you have 4 minutes and not 4 minutes and 1 second, so they have to really plan their pitch. Anyway, that's one of my favorite things that I go to during the year. It's a lot of fun, but that's, I think, end of August, maybe. It's in Miami.
Is there an ROI on what NAR invests into those startups?
Oh, yeah.
Actually get a return, not just for the members, but an actual stock return on it?
Yes, they also have to discount our members. So that was the big part of it, is that, you build it, we will come. And then it's there for all of you. So go to nar.realtor and search for REACH, R-E-A-C-H, or Second Century Ventures. We call it SCV for short. But if you go into the search bar, Now, some of you are going to go to nar.realtor and realize that you've either never logged in or it's been so long you have no clue. So forgot password, forgot username will work. Somebody over here had a question. Yes.
Thank you. Quick question. You mentioned property tax assistance. So when can we expect, or is Governor Abbott, do you have any ideas he's going to sign anything this year for that assistance for all?
So I'm more at the national level. I'm barely home, so Melissa can probably even answer that better than I can because she's more connected here than I am.
We're in a special session,
Yeah, right now.
like right this minute. He
Yep.
called everybody back and said, come on back.
Yes.
And the reason they're back is because they couldn't come to agreement on it.
And he will make them keep coming back until they do because he's done it before.
Oh, but there's got to be a finality to it, right? They've got to.
Right. Well, the Senate has got one plan and the House has another
Yep.
plan, and they've got to figure out how to make it all work between the two of them, right?
Well, they're talking about a 5% cap on increase per year, which certainly would help, especially with how much, I mean, I'm sure you all get your property taxes in the mail and go.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when you get that little Zillow email, your home is now worth, and you're like, somebody would pay for that? Wow. Hey, honey, guess what? We should move now.
But property taxes were Governor Abbott's number two, well, it's probably his number one thing, but they have to go, our legislatures in Texas have to go to do the budget. If they can't do a budget, they can't do it. If they can do the budget, then the governor has priorities, and taxes, property taxes was like the top of the list. And since they couldn't come to an agreement, he's just bringing them back. But you guys are all probably aware, everybody has the 10% today, right? But if it's your homestead and it's worth $100,000 today, next year it can't be more than 110 because there's a 10% cap. To Leslie's point, they're, one of the sides of Congress is saying, let's have a 5% cap. But last I heard, the 5% cap was for everybody, so that would include investors in commercial property,
Yeah.
which is great for people who are investing.
Right.
Not so amazing potentially for homeowners, though, that that's all that they're getting, right? Because the cities, think about it like this, is your city or your county going to say, well, then we just won't provide police service? Or whatever's not going to provide? They're going to need the money, so instead of being able to go from 100,000 to 110, we can only go to 105, but we still need to pay our police officers. So maybe instead of adding a 2% tax,
What's the hiddenpropertytax.com? Is that what it's called? Hidden.
gosh, there is a website for that.
There's a Texas website. It's Texas Realtors. It's hiddenpropertytax.com, I think.
It might be.
And they have it updated as to what the most recent is. And you know, because we're one of the few states that has no state income tax, that's why our property taxes are off the charts. So I'm sure you've had buyers before say, this is crazy. You're like, but hey, you don't have to pay income tax. That's how we reel them in, right? But I'll tell you, there are a lot of people moving here. I had a friend from California say 9 of their 10 last listings were moving to Texas. I go, really? Wow, that's crazy. Where are they moving? But you know what? Texas is big. We have lots of room to grow, always. And if you look at Collin County on a map, we have a lot of space to fill in. So that's good for all of us in real estate, for sure.
Being the only mortgage person in the room, I'll ask this question. So what is NAR's position on allowing realtors to become licensed originators and originate loans in a dual purpose capacity?
Well, that exists now.
Right. Yeah, I'm just curious as to what.
Honestly, I don't think that's on the front burner with all that's going on. Right now, we want to try and get interest rates down. So our economists are working with our government on hoping to get that down. I know I worked a lot last year on veteran VA loans because everyone, as soon as they see that, they freak out and think, oh my God, we can't do that. So I testified before Congress about veteran loans, and then they asked me to do 2 videos for them with some veterans, which I did do. But I think they're trying to amp that up. If you have something specific, though, you're welcome to send it to me, and I will forward it on to our chief lobbyist, who will then send it to the right department, which is what I do with anything, because there's no way I could know everything. Nobody could ever know everything. Even the CEO can't know everything. There's that much that goes on a daily basis. And I mean, you can't even imagine. I mean, just the speech writers alone are pretty much just for the leadership team. And there's a speechwriter for every 2 to 3 people. And then you add in the regional vice presidents, there's 13 of those. The liaisons, there's about 16 of those. And I mean, it just adds up all the speeches that they have to write. So, but they do an amazing job, and they're working with legal and our advocacy department too to make sure we're giving you the most new information updated daily. So that's why I just got my speech Monday night for today, because they're updating everything over the weekend to make sure it's all right. Because people are like, how do you write all these speeches? I'm like, are you crazy? First of all, I'm not a speech writer. I'd still be writing a speech from last week for this week if I was in charge of it, because that's not what I do. But anyway, being involved is very rewarding, a lot more than people realize, even if you're a member of a committee. And Melissa would, I'm sure, stand behind that. And Tamera, you've done your share of serving as well. But you meet the most amazing people. People ask me all the time, how do you possibly have 5,000 friends on Facebook? I'm like, well, that was like 8 or 10 years ago, because I'm so involved. And I bet you I have 20,000 that would like to be, but I can't because they have that max. And that's okay. But on the other hand, another problem you have in my position are stalkers. And I have had a lot of them. And some of them are a little bit scary, you know, especially when they're from out of the country and they're calling me on WhatsApp on my phone, and they won't leave a message, and you can't find anything out by searching a phone number outside of our country. It's just pretty much nothing. So I just block them all and hope that doesn't make them want to come get me, but you never know, because we live in a crazy world, don't we? That's why y'all need to be very, very, very careful out there. One of my big things last year, I had 3 things: safety, sustainability, and our strength in numbers. And you know, it's interesting, a lot of realtors would like to see us pay $10,000 a year to be a member of the National Association of Realtors so we could weed out those that aren't selling anything.
Wow.
I mean, you hear it all the time. But then on the other hand, on the flip side of the coin, 1.6 million people in Washington, D.C. with a voice saying, you can't do that, or yes, you can do that, or this is what we want with this tweak. I mean, when you look at like the Build Back Better plan, things like that, NAR is so deep in that stuff, you have no idea. And the lady who's our chief lobbyist is one of the top 20 females in Washington, D.C. in the way of knowing what's going on and knowing the issues. So she does an amazing job, and we have lobbyists that represent every party, and it's amazing what gets done. So I will tell you, back in 2011, when I owned Prudential Texas Properties, one of my managers said, you know, the realtors are upset about the dues increase. And I said, well, let me come speak to your meeting. And she said, I have a speaker. I said, all right, well, let's plan another meeting. So we did. There was a lady that I had known for 20 years since the day she got into real estate. She was a big producer. She was not involved. And she said, you know what, Leslie? You know what we should do? We should hire some lobbyists. So it's the only time I can remember in my entire life where I literally had to look at my shoes and say, do not come up for air until you know you cannot laugh. Because if you knew how hard our lobbyists work every single day for us at the state and national level, it's mind-blowing. And if you ever want to know what the Political Action Committee, which we call TREPAC in Texas, has done for you, go to texasrealestate.com. That's the Texas Realtors site for all of us. And put in the search bar TREPAC, T-R-E-P-A-C calculator. Fill in the numbers with the best year you've ever had in real estate. Find out how much money you would owe if it weren't for people like us that are volunteering to make sure those things don't get passed or defeated against our will. And I can tell you, I had my husband do it about 15 years ago with the best year he ever had, and he just sat there and stared at me. And I go, what's the number? And he goes, I don't think it's right. And I go, what's the number? And he said, 100,000. I go, 100,000 in taxes and fees? I go, let me see it. That was what it was. That was 15 years ago. They've tried to tax our vehicles even more than we already pay tax on that. They want to tax on commissions in addition to, because they're not getting income tax, so they want tax on commissions. These are all things, and I'm sure you could probably think of some other ones, that we have fought and won, but you have no idea because you don't hear about it because we just do it. It doesn't happen and doesn't affect you, therefore, it was never a problem. Well, sometimes it is a huge problem. And in the United States, just to also give you another idea of the impact and the influence of RPAC. So Montana has about 3,000 members. That's about 1/4 of Collin County's membership. And don't forget the rest of Texas. So we gave them $1 million to fight transfer fees. Are all of you familiar with transfer fees? Okay, well, if you're not, it's because we've never had them here. Why have we never had them here? Because we fought and fought and fought to make sure we don't. But here's the thing. Let's say there is a bill to charge $5 for every property that transfers. Okay, and we all say, yeah, that's $5, really? It's not a big deal, is it? That's not the problem. The problem is, once you give them that much, it can change to something like 10% of the sales price, which actually did happen. So $5 to 10% of the sales price is a whole lot of money, big difference. So we have fought transfer fees even in states that have little membership because we're trying to set a precedent across the country that you want to mess with the realtors? Come on, bring it on. We've got deep pockets, we'll take you on, and you will not have transfer fees. But think about this, there are people who list their house and buy in another state and they're paying transfer fees on both, or even in their own state where they have transfer fees. We are so fortunate to sell real estate in the state that we sell in. That's why it's so important to know things like this to be able to help your clients and customers understand. I mean, can you imagine if you even had 1% of the sales price transfer fee because we were unable to defeat that when it was on the books? So being able to say those things to buyers and sellers just shows your expertise above and beyond your competition. So there's a lot to learn, I know, but if you would just spend even an hour a week at nar.realtor and search things, there are all kinds of market information available from our chief economist, Lawrence Yoon, and you can just literally put in market data for whatever area you want. Another one, how many of you are using Market Viewer from Texas Realtors? Got 2, 3? Okay, so if you're not, you should be. Okay, I got a big one here. How many of you are using RPR? Okay, if you're not, your competitors are. I know brokers who recruit agents from other real estate companies because of RPR when they also have it. Because their broker doesn't tell them what they're missing. And I don't know if you've ever printed anything out for a listing appointment or even just put it, on your laptop to share. I mean, I told my daughter, I go, run our house. It was 76 pages. And it's a wealth of information. And you know what the seller thinks? Dang, you're an amazing realtor. You stayed up all night and did that? Because they know you didn't just do that at the snap of your fingers when actually you did.